Hello everybody, my name is Mohamed Ali Bouaziz. I am a postdoctoral researcher at the EPF Engineering School of Troyes in France. I work on the characterization of material from additive manufacturing. I am delighted to present to you today part of our research work. In this study, carried out by myself, the project leader Joseph Marae Djouda, and Professor François Hild, we focused on the combination of numerical and experimental methods for the analysis of fracture of polymer material obtained by the fused filament fabrication technique. My presentation is divided into 4 parts. First, an introduction, followed by the methodology of the proposed method, then an application of this method, and I will finish with the conclusions. Let's start with the introduction. The growth of using additive manufacturing in the production of functional and end-use finished part raised the level of the quality requirement. Therefore, the major challenge of additive manufacturing research is to improve the mechanical properties and fracture behavior using various experimental and numerical design techniques. The strong influence of the printing parameter on the fracture properties imply that for any change in the parameter set require an experimental study to be carried out to extract them. Consequently, there is an interest in defining methods to be adopted and developing tools to evaluate fracture properties in a precise and easily reproducible way. To reach this objective, 2 methods are adopted and tested, and their methodology are developed below. We used an experimental device developed during a previous study, recently published in the journal Polymer Testing, to measure by image correlation the kinematic field on a microscopic scale at the surface of the material during a tensile test, like it's shown by this video. We note here that the press structure of the material have an effect on the strain distributions. From these kinematic fields, 2 ways are explored to calculate the J integral. The first, we use a finite element model. On the second, only measured field is used. First, I will start by presenting the FE model and then the J integral calculation code based on DIC. In the finite element model, the DIC region of interest was modeled as a 2D rectangular area meshed with 4 node planar stress elements. The mesh size is the distance between consecutive subset centers. In this way, the number of nodes in this model was identical to the number of DIC subsets. Boundary conditions were defined by prescribing the displacement of the external boundary of the region of interest. To find the crack tip location, the FA model can be used. For this, a sample definition of the crack tip location was considered. It corresponds to the location on the crack path for which the identification error between the measured and computed displacement field was the smallest when the crack tip position is changing. The nodal displacement difference between DIC and FA analysis is computed, and the displacement gap consists in the root mean square difference. The minimum of the identification error curve shown below is the best approximation of the crack tip position. The FA model gives the crack tip position, but it also evaluates the G integral with its built-in procedure. Another route to calculate G integral is provided by the method based only on measured kinematic field that I will present now. To calculate the G integral from measured displacement and strain fields, the stress need to be evaluated. A planar stress assumption was made for each layer. In that case, the strain-stress relationship is written as below by taking into account transformation matrix to move from global coordinate system to the local one and then calculate the stiffness matrix. Thanks to the similarity between 3D printed materials and composites, the formulation such as that proposed by Catalanotti may prove suitable for 3D printed material. To calculate the J integral in a composite material, the authors proposed a formulation derived from Reis's work. It is calculated using displacement, strain, and stress, with a rectangular contour including the crack tip. The energy release rate, here equal to J, was computed point by point along each edge of the contour. The J integral is then assessed from the sum of all discrete contributions of each subset center. Now, let's apply these methods. A micro single-edge notched tensile specimen was 3D printed with the dimension shown in figure below. The notch was also made by additive manufacturing. The notch dimension meet standards recommendation, namely specimen width and initial crack length. The specimen was printed by adding molten layers of ABS using a MakerBot replicator 2X. The sample was printed as a solid part in flat part orientation and plus and minus 45 degrees configuration. The experimental setup consisted of a numerical microscope for the surface observation, a tensile micro machine, and a triggering system. The latter allowed images to be recorded at a specific rate when the specimen was continuously loaded and each image to be related to the corresponding applied load. Since the notch was welded, due to the temperature of filament deposition and the dimension of the notch, in the magnification power was set to the lower length range value in order to monitor a wide enough region to contain the notch opening. When this opening was detected, a zoom in the vicinity of the notch root was operated with no interruption of the test. This is why images are divided into test part 1 and test part 2. DIC was conducted on obtained image sequence. Figure shown here show longitudinal strain maps. For relatively high loading strains, distribution are no longer uniform and it clearly evidences the material pre-structure. The crack extension history is obtained by applying FE-based method. At the beginning of the test, no crack propagation is noticeable. Once reaching step 562, the crack initiate and propagate between the two filaments forming the edge of the notch. The notch fully opened along its length, which was equal to 3.6 mm. The displacement fields were reset because of the magnification change. Despite small displacement levels, it's observed that the FE procedure identified small crack length. These results show that this method makes it possible to measure the very small crack growth even with very low level of deformation. This crack extension law is taken into account to calculate G integral but only second part of the test is studied. In one hand, the J integral was computed by contour integration using experimentally measured strains and displacements. In the other hand, it was computed by FE model. Until step 772, both methods yielded almost the same level of J. Root mean squared error was equal to 0.46 kilojoule per square meter. From step 772 on, the results diverge. Namely, the experimental procedure gave higher value of J than those computed by the FE-based procedure. The source of this offset can be explained by mapping the error between the measured and calculated displacements. For relatively low loads, the FE model described rather well the material behavior, and the identification error in displacement did not exceed 13 micrometer. The evaluation of the J integral by both methods yielded almost the same level. From step 772 on, the plastic deformation extended to locations other than the crack tip vicinity, which made the FE model not very precise because it did not take into account the plastic behavior. This is also true for the experimental procedure, in which the stress levels were overestimated. Some conclusion can be drawn from this work. Combined experimental numerical technique based on microscale digital image correlation measurement are used to investigate the fracture properties of additively manufacturing polymer parts. J integral could be obtained accurately by both methods during propagation. The FE-based method showed higher robustness to accurately locate the crack tip. Finally, the difference map between numerical and experimental displacement fields allow links between the material's microstructure and the mechanical properties to be established. Finally, I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, don't hesitate to contact me via the contact details displayed below.